Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Sorry about the delay in videos, but I've been having real life stuff going on. It's all good, but I haven't been gaming, and which is kind of disappointing to me. But and I also haven't been able to make any movies, and sometimes it's because I just haven't had much to say, so don't want to bore you. But I had an interesting thing happen to me the other day. I had a tree fall in my car. Car's okay. It got pinned, and there's some pretty cool looking dents in the top of my Jeep, but it's all right. But it got me thinking about something that I've thought about before, and that's really big things. Because I go outside to my car, and I give it the college try. I try to push this tree off a little bit. I knew I couldn't, but I was like, wow, that's really, really big and really, really heavy. Um, and it makes me think about how we handle big stuff in the games, and not just feats of strength. And that maybe that's a different topic. Um, but for the most part, we're dealing with human-sized characters, or I like to play humans, period. I kind of like that a little bit better. But, in general, they're just human-sized. So you're talking about human levels of strength and everything. And we're medium-sized creatures. We're really not all that big when it comes right down to it. And in a typical game of D&D, we might end up... it can turn into some kind of really bizarre slaughter fest where we're going up against a bunch of creatures that are just enormous. And not that I want the game to be realistic, once again, but sometimes that can constrain the believability just a little bit. As you're going up against something like an ogre. That's kind of where things start to get really big. Um, and you think a typical D&D ogre is going to be somewhere around 9 feet tall. I think that's about 600 pounds, give or take. This guy might be wielding just a club. Maybe that club weighs 30, 40 pounds. That's going to hurt a lot when it hits you. And I'm kind of in that camp where hit points aren't really physical until you get down to last one or two, and that's a mortal wound. Maybe they're kind of physical where you're taking little bumps and scratches and bruises, but they're mostly your combat prowess. But the idea is you're a human and maybe you wield something like a club and maybe it does 1d6 or 1d8 damage, depending. But now you've got like an ogre, and you look at some of the typical older D&D ideas that maybe they does like 1 to 10 or something, which seems to me a little bit low. I'm kind of rethinking the idea that maybe for the most part, people would be coming up against stuff that's kind of in their size range. And every once in a while, for something not, I hate to use the word epic, but every once in a while you're going to come up against something which is really just big and scary. And if you look at it on paper, you'd say, we'll take the name ogre away and take the size away, and now you're looking at something with like 4, 5 hit dice, something like that. Maybe it's got 30 hit points. Not so scary once you've got some levels under your belt. As opposed to, well, maybe this thing still has the same armor class, or maybe it has a lot more hit points, but more to the point. Maybe it doesn't have too many more hit points. Maybe it does a lot of damage when it actually hits you. Maybe you can use the idea that we're going to use the basic strength of 19, so it gets to add 4 to its damage, which now all of a sudden you've got something that's doing maybe 5 to what is that, like 12 hit points of damage, maybe more, 5 to 14. Maybe you get to roll like 2d12, maybe, and add 1. Maybe it's like 3 to 13 or something. That gets to be pretty scary because you just don't want to get hit by this guy. Even if you're the big beefy fighter with say 30 or 40 hit points, maybe you can roll with the punches a couple times and then you're dead. And if you're an average guy, if the ogre hits you once, you're just dead. And I kind of like that idea that maybe we kind of hand wave how big things are a little bit too much in the game. And I understand why that happened in the beginning. But I kind of like the idea that maybe we use these a little more judiciously. But then maybe something like an ogre becomes really, really scary.